Welcome to a Driving Healthcare Effectiveness and Efficiency episode of the Fed to Fed podcast by GOVTECH CONNECTS. This special series, brought to you in collaboration with Maximus, focuses on best practices for meeting evolving health needs and improving citizen experience by combining advanced technology and human-centered design principles. We'll explore how emerging technologies can drive transformation in a way that effectively and efficiently delivers health services, programs, and systems with flexibility, security, scale, and human connection. Welcome to today's episode, part of a series featuring IGNITE 2026 honorees from Maximus, where each guest reflects on the power of innovation, impact, and purposeful change. In this conversation, we'll explore the journey behind transformational leadership, the mindset needed to drive meaningful progress, and the emerging opportunities shaping the future of government and industry. Candice, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I can't wait to dive into some of these amazing questions that we have crafted regarding this podcast. So let's go ahead and get started. Candice, as an IGNITE 2026 honoree, you're recognized as a transformational leader who's able to leverage their unique leadership skills and expertise to accelerate innovation and measurable impact. Tell us a little bit more about your journey and how that path has led you to where you are today.
Sure. Thank you. So my career has been defined by one consistent and persistent instinct, and that is to keep moving further upstream. I started in technology support close to the end user, helping people navigate systems that often didn't work the way they should. And I noticed something. The problems people were experiencing weren't random. They were predictable, which means they're preventable. And so I moved into testing, trying to catch the problems before users ever saw them. But then testing showed me that flaws were baked in at the design stage. So I moved into design. And design showed me that the requirements handed to designers were often incomplete or wrong to begin with. So I moved into development and solution architecture and trying to get the right thing built correctly from the start. The most consequential decisions were happening in how the problem was defined. Who decided what mattered, who framed what success looked like, who connected the mission need to the solution strategy, and that's where I wanted to be. So that's what brought me to where I am now and ultimately to Maximus. We're defining solutions that determine whether a veteran gets a timely disability rating or whether a beneficiary gets enrolled correctly. And getting the problem definition right isn't just an academic exercise for us. It has real human cost when we get it wrong. So that's what keeps me here and what keeps me pushing further upstream every single day.
I love that. Thank you so much, Candice, for sharing the journey with us. So what advice would you give other leaders or aspiring leaders who see opportunities to drive transformational change, but not sure how to get started?
The first thing I'd suggest is resist the urge to start with the technology. And that sounds counterintuitive, given what I do, but transformational leaders who get stuck almost always get stuck the same way. They become enamored with a solution before they've deeply defined the problem. And they show up with a platform or a tool or a capability, and they wonder why the organization isn't moving. So you have to start with the problem. You have to get really obsessive about the problem. What is the specific mission outcome that isn't happening today? Who's harmed by that gap? Is it a beneficiary, a frontline worker, a taxpayer? And when you can answer that with precision and competence, the path to transformation becomes really clear. And it's much easier to resource and defend that. In my experience supporting federal health and human services programs at Maximus, the leaders who drive real change are the ones who can walk into the room and say, here's exactly what's broken, here's what it cost, and here's what good looks like. And that clarity is critical.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, Candice, as you look into the future, what's the next big challenge or opportunity you're setting your sights on?
There's a couple of things. One challenge I keep coming back to is what I call the mission speed problem. The agencies I support are operating under real urgency, new legislative mandates, tightening thresholds, aging systems, and beneficiary populations that are growing faster than program infrastructure can scale. And meanwhile, the acquisition process moves on a fundamentally different clock. I've seen innovative platforms that could genuinely transform program outcomes spend 2 to 3 years in an acquisition phase. Another challenge I'm focused on is one that sits at the intersection of policy, technology, and accountability. And I'd frame it this way. Government programs are very good at measuring activity and catching up at measuring transformation. I spent a lot of time working on health and human services programs where the mission is clear, get the right benefit to the right person, but the contracts that govern those programs are rarely tie performance to those outcomes. And that creates a system where contractors are rewarded for compliance and penalized for innovation. And fixing that isn't just a procurement problem, it's a policy problem, a cultural problem, and frankly, a contract structure problem, which is why the recent FAR overhaul represents such a pivotal moment for both government and industry.
So, Candice, thank you for sharing that information. So, with the revolutionary FAR overhaul and broader procurement modernization efforts underway, what do you see as the biggest low-hanging fruit for government and industry to work together to accelerate innovation and improve mission outcomes?
So the FAR overhaul is a once in a generation opportunity. It really is, but only if we resist making the existing system faster. So the biggest low-hanging fruit isn't buried in the FAR subparts, it's in how we define what success looks like. For decades, government contracts have rewarded activity, deliverables submitted, hours logged, reports generated, but mission outcomes like a beneficiary enrolled correctly, an improper payment prevented, a veteran getting access to benefits faster, a claim adjudicated faster, those rarely appear in a CLIN structure. This overhaul gives us a real opportunity to change that. Contract structures tied to outcomes with shared savings mechanisms would really transform the government industry relationship from a compliance transaction into a genuine performance partnership. If a contractor's performance reduces improper payments from, say, 4% to 2%, there should be a structure and a contractual way to recognize and reward that. And right now, there isn't. And companies like Maximus that operate at that intersection of policy, technology, and direct service delivery across health and human services programs, the FAR overhaul aims to align these to make sure contracts incentivize outcomes and modernization and innovation and not just throughput. Another area I'm looking at is government has gotten a lot better at discovering innovative technology through the use of things like OTAs and pitch days and CSOs. And the problem is what happens next. A pilot succeeds, the outcomes are strong, and the agency wants to scale. And then the path to a contract it can become a multi-year journey. The lowest hanging fruit here is codifying a structure that streamlines the bridge from pilot to full acquisition. A legitimate transition pathway that gives agencies and industry the confidence to invest in proof of concept work, knowing that there's a viable road to scale. So for companies operating in complex health and human services, this matters enormously. The barrier isn't invention, it's acquisition architecture. It's important that the procurement structures designed to protect agencies aren't actually inhibiting innovation. And then finally, another area that I'm looking at, industry and government collectively spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually writing proposals. And for many, advances in this process isn't producing better ultimate outcomes. And streamlining that doesn't mean less accountability, it means redirecting the investment. The time and resources that industry spends on compliance-heavy proposals could go into things like solution development and transition planning and modernization and operational innovation and things that really move the mission. So at Maximus, we're managing programs that touch millions of beneficiaries, and the operational intelligence we build doing that work is where our best solutions come from, not from proposal season. So procurement reform that gets closer to that operational reality faster is good for government, it's good for citizens, and frankly, it's good for the contractors who earn their place through performance and outcomes.
Candice, thank you so much for sharing this information with us and also your thoughts around the opportunities as this modernization efforts continue to move forward. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your leadership. Congratulations once again on being an IGNITE 2026 honoree. And we look forward to seeing all kinds of great things that you're doing to have an impact on what's happening at the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you so much, Susan. I've enjoyed being here.
Thank you for joining us today. To find out more about digital innovation for federal health optimization and resilience, visit the Driving Healthcare Effectiveness and Efficiency landing page on GOVTECHConnects.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast channel to stay up to date on the latest episodes.